This conference will now be recorded.
Good day. Welcome and thank you for joining the third chapter in our monthly Cybersecure Canada webinar series, Automatically Patch Operating Systems and Applications. My name is Brendan Dunphy. I am the Director of Trust and Compliance with CyberNB Inc. This webinar will be recorded. Participants can ask questions via the chat box. We will address questions during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, time permitting. Any questions that are not addressed can be asked via email to info@bulletproofsi.com or the contact us option on cyberessentialscanada.ca. So let's get started. Today's topic will be automatically patching operating systems and applications, featuring not one but two industry expert speakers, Tim Doel and Chris Jakubowski from Bulletproof Solutions. Tim and Chris will be presenting on the benefits and best practices when patching and how this will meet the control requirements of CyberSecure Canada certification. Before we dive into their presentation, I will give a brief overview of the CyberSecure Canada certification program. CyberSecure Canada was designed by Canadians to protect Canadian organizations. It is based on 13 control areas developed by the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and they are: develop an incident response plan, securely configure devices, backup and encrypt data, enable security software, secure mobility, use strong user authentication, secure portable media, secure cloud and outsourced IT services, secure websites, implement access control and authorization, provide employee awareness training, establish basic perimeter defenses, and today's topic, automatically patch operating systems. For more in-depth information on each control, please visit our website, cyberessentialscanada.ca, where you'll have a link to the baseline cybersecurity controls for small and medium organizations document, which details each control under this framework. Each month, we will be presenting on one control topic per month to provide more details on the controls and what the CyberSecure Canada compliance is looking for when implementing these controls. So don't forget to join us for our next chapter in next month for our webinar series in September. The topic will be CyberSecure Canada Control Topic 3, Enable Security Software. This webinar will focus on the CyberSecure Canada requirements under this topic and the benefits to cybersecurity hygiene it provides. This webinar will also feature an industry expert speaker from one of our accredited CyberSecure Canada certification bodies. So the goals of this program are to improve Canada's small and medium organizations' cybersecurity baseline, basically raise the bar and make us our economy stronger on the in the digital economy, if you will. Raise awareness and educate all Canadians about cybersecurity and increase consumer confidence in the digital economy of Canada. The certification process has 6 steps. First of all, to get started, you can register to the secure online cyber web portal by going to cyberessentialscanada.ca and clicking register. From there, you would complete the compliance roadmap and submit for review. At that time, you would be asked to select from one of the 4 accredited certification bodies. They would then log in and review your submission and determine if there's any gaps or if you are ready for approved certification. If there is any gaps, they would ask for clarification or ask you to provide more evidence. And once certified, you would achieve certification for a 2-year period. After that time, you would recertify. Certification bodies are third-party organizations who are trained and accredited as certification assessors by Standards Council of Canada to support the CyberSecure Canada program. The CyberSecure Canada accredited certification bodies include Bulletproof Solutions, who will be presenting on patching operating systems and applications for us today, Cybersecurity Canada, SourceTech IT, and WhatsEx Cyber Risk Management. The cost for certification is basically CyberNB provides organizations the ability to register to our secure online portal at $350 Canadian plus applicable taxes. This covers access to the online toolset to process the CyberSecure Canada requirements. Certification review cost is set by the certification bodies and billed directly from the selected certification body. Once certified, you will receive official recognition that Canadian government recognized cybersecurity controls are in place. This badge of trust will also provide organizations an easy way to let customers and stakeholders know they have decreased their cyber risk. Now, we are pleased to announce a new agreement with Hub International, the 5th largest insurer in the world, and CyberNB. With this agreement, Hub will ensure all organizations processing cyber certification through our secure online portal will not only be eligible for cybersecurity insurance, but will receive preferred rates when they do purchase a policy. If you are interested in getting cyber certified today to start saving on cyber insurance, please visit our website, cyberessentialscanada.ca. Okay, so as part of our monthly Partner Spotlight series, we will be showcasing a specific partner and their unique offering in the CyberSecure Canada program. August Partner Spotlight features Bulletproof Solutions. Bulletproof has had a key role in the development and support of the CyberSecure Canada program. They are an accredited certification body and offer practitioner services to assist with certification preparation. We have a partner spotlight page on our website, cyberessentialscanada.ca, showcasing Bulletproof's specific offerings in this space, as well as a vlog featuring Jeff Shaw, Chief Operating Officer of Bulletproof Solutions. So please visit our website to check that out. Now, I'd like to introduce our industry expert guest speakers. We have Chris Jakubowski and Tim Doel of Bulletproof Solutions. As a passionate technology advocate and evangelist, Tim has spent over 20 years dealing with the pains, challenges, and successes of implementing, managing, and supporting Microsoft solutions at many enterprise-scale organizations across all common industries around the world. With a broad range of experience, but a deep focus on the Microsoft 365 modern workplace vision and a drive for operational excellence, Tim's focused area of specialty has been the modernization of Windows client environments, including endpoint management, security, and Office 365 integration. He brings to all roles a deep understanding of the many technical and operational blockers and challenges that hinder customer modernization and transformation projects today. Chris is a technical architect at Bulletproof with over 20 years of expertise in the IT field. Chris's focus over the last 5 years has been towards monitoring and automation. Work with various technologies including server management, physical and virtual, network management, unified communications, and other IT areas have contributed to a wealth of knowledge in this area. So again, at the end of the presentations, there will be a questions and answers section, time permitting. If we don't address your question, you can reach out to info@bulletproofsi.com or the contact us option on the Cyber Essentials Canada website. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I'll give the reins over to Chris.
Everyone, sorry, I'm just getting my screen up here. Hope everybody's having a good day today, and thank you very much, Brendan, for the introduction. Okay, so going over patch management today is I wanted to bring in a bit of a review as far as the server management, server part of the patch management section. That's what I'm going to be covering today and presenting and related to that. It's in more of a traditional sense, just as far as the infrastructure goes for server devices, network devices. So those are kind of the topics I wanted to bring out. Server management, we mainly focus on Windows patching for Microsoft devices is more so what we deal mainly in. A lot of the topics that I'm still going to talk about today and our methodology, it still does apply to Linux devices as well, but that's the main bulk of the systems that we usually deal with. So it does apply to physical and virtual. So this could be, still some on-premise devices, virtual devices on-premise, and also servers that are in the cloud and Azure and things like that. Network devices, I just want to bring up just to make sure that it's something that isn't forgotten in the background, because the devices such as routers, firewalls, network storage, unified communications, and devices like that, there still is an operating system, usually referred to as firmware, but they do require patching as well. So why is patching important? Patching, we want to place a priority on because of, especially around the secure aspect, as was discussed before. It's, again, another point within your network and then within your environment that does require frequent security updates to help contribute to the security of your infrastructure. Again, bug fixes, things like that are also applied as part of the patching. Hotfixes are referred to a lot of the time to help with issues with the operating system and various things like that. So they're released on a frequent date, and also because sometimes there's release of new features, and that can be into the product as well. So we have our little guy here at the bottom in the comic strip. He gets his update, sees what it's about, and he's clicking on that. Just remind me later. That can happen sometimes, and it's easy something that has, happens within people's environments, and we're trying to, with automation, trying to help curb that, I guess. And this is a lap workstation, a laptop, and Tim's going to be discussing that a bit further within his slides, but still applies in the server end of things too, so it can get neglected at times. So server patching, we've noticed that within the last couple of years that Microsoft has changed a lot of the methodology towards the way they've done patching, and they've moved to more of a monthly roll-up patching method, where it's all bundled into one larger patch. There still is some releases in between, but that's the bulk of it as far as the patching goes. And again, I mentioned Tim's going to elaborate a lot further on this. He'll give you a really good explanation of it down the road, but I wanted to highlight that as far as the servers go and how it works. So some of those still require a bit of a review in some of the patch approval systems that are out there, and that could be anything also related to new feature role products, or say like SQL patches and things like that. Some of those still require a bit of approval, and it can be done in a lot of the automated tools. So with today's security concerns, it has also increased the recommended patch frequency. So that's due to some of the roll-ups, due to the risk of your system potentially being exposed to a security vulnerability, that that everything's kind of shifted to a lot more frequent patching to make sure that systems do stay secure. Some of the benefits that can come from patch automation is that main thing that we're trying to accomplish, which is that patching on a regular basis, and we're making sure that they stay up to date. Reporting and compliance is a big thing that can come from the automation. It gives that ability to track the patches and do that reporting and making sure that you do stay compliant. So that's very important with today's world. Monitoring systems, they can generally monitor things that are going on within there, and then we can create tickets based on the issues and address the issues quicker. So that is another thing that kind of works in tandem with the patching automation and helps with that. And then we can have 0-day patches that are released, emergency patches. Automation systems, they can benefit in these types of patches where they can be deployed in mass or quickly in your environment. So part of what I want to bring up today is proper planning is key to having successful patch management. And this can apply to any organization from large to small. And I don't know if anyone is trying to improve their patch management or if they're just trying to work on a better deployment in their environment now, or just get automation set up in their systems. But planning definitely is a key to it. So the goal is to get that regular scheduling of patching from that automation to ensure that you're constantly being patched up to date. So the plan should be developed based around the business needs, around your business continuity. It can be an office that runs, say, from 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. So your needs would be different from a business that is a production environment and they're running 24/7 hours and they have little downtime. So it does vary, and we definitely take that into consideration when we're planning around the needs of the system. So the system should be flexible to help plan for that. So it should be able to pick days and times at any point during the week or the month. So based on that, you should be considering weekly or a monthly patch schedule. Ideally, you want to do frequently. So a lot of times we can go for weekly, but depending on client, we can look at doing monthly schedules, and tools should be able to accommodate this. So larger organizations, if you have the servers and things that are in the background where you have an application that runs on a server there where you have a test or a dev environment, and then you also have your production environment, staging is a recommended way to go with that, so that you can stage your patch in your dev environment, ensure that everything is working properly, and then it can be automatically scheduled that a deployment would be, say, a week later or something of that nature. And then the patch would be applied to your production area. So it gives you that little bit of a test environment. A lot of organizations don't necessarily have that, but where you can, we definitely put those into place and utilize that. And that way a patch can be stopped at any point. So backups are a key consideration in this as well. So it should be considered around when your backup times run and when your backup times end. So there should be that ability to potentially create multiple backup schedules so that you aren't impeding your servers from getting a good backup, and you ensure that your data is safe, and if something did happen, you can restore. And then the second point to that is that you are ensuring those backups are good, so that should be done as well to ensure that if something drastic did happen, usually it's a rollback, and you roll back to like the patches previously, so that way it can be reversed. But it could be a rare case where something does happen and something's corrupted, and then you can have an issue with the server. So definitely ensuring that a good backup you have in your backup system is a key thing to doing proper planning with patch management too. So we also deal with patch store or patch repositories. It's not quite as frequent with today's environment with higher speed internet, but some of the patching can definitely get quite large, and your patch window can vary. If you we want to reduce the amount of risk, and we want to reduce the amount of downtime that is affecting anyone. So in those cases, you can use a repository. And we put a repository in usually locations, so if an office is in, say, Fredericton versus in Moncton, you can try and centralize a repository in certain locations. A lot of times then a system can reach out, your other servers can reach out to that repository to grab the patch from there, and it speeds everything up rather than having to download the patch for every single server. It's just downloading from a central location. And part of the planning too, we always like to make sure that the servers are brought up to date as far as the patching goes before leveraging the automation. There can be issues, especially, again, this kind of falls back on the time frames that you want to reduce your downtime that a client has, and you're not impacting your business. And we want to bring those definitely all the servers up to the most current patching, and then entering them into patching at that point, just to ensure the patching works properly and you're not running outside of that patch window, and then some failures could happen or something of that nature. So other considerations that we like to bring up, just so that people are aware, is that there's a lot of these automated systems, all of them you're going to be looking at an agent installation is generally how they work. So there needs to be some time taken towards that to ensure that the agents are deployed and they're responding properly, and then working. And then part of that is usually AV exceptions should be put into place at the same time, just to ensure that it's not, the antivirus doesn't impact those agents and proper patch deployment occurs properly. Service packs, our methodology is a bit different around the service packs. There's a lot higher risk and there are larger updates as far as on the servers go. And due to that nature of those types of patches, usually we plan those outside of the automated patching. So there's more of a technician who applies that manually. So they're more a bit further review, and they're available, and at the time they're applying the patch to ensure that the patch applies properly. And if something does happen, they're actually on site and reacting immediately to it as well. So there can be cases like that for these larger ones that happen like that as well. At the end, last part of this, as far as the server side, is I want to bring up around the physical servers that are on site. This kind of ties similar to networking, where there is firmware that is on the physical servers, and this could be a Dell server, HP, Lenovo, whatever it is. But there is firmware in there that does require patching as well, and those can have security updates that are required to apply to those as well. So that should be reviewed periodically too. And generally these ones have to be done within the vendor software that's there. So that one is a little bit more manual based, but definitely it should be done. Monitoring tools and things like that sometimes can, a lot of times help with that too, where there could be reports generated to aid with that for that review, to make sure that gets done on a frequent basis. So the one that I wanted to bring up is that I mentioned at the start was just around the network patch management. This kind of gets forgotten sometimes, and maybe just isn't done quite as frequently. But again, your network devices are important devices that need to be reviewed and patched periodically. So I wanted to definitely bring it up within this forum as well. So the OS or firmware, that's what we're looking at trying to patch in there. And again, it's similar to the server firmware, one that you have on a physical server, is that this is a little bit more of a manual process. The vendors are getting a lot better in working at the vendor tools that are available to do more automated patching. Usually you do have to work within the same vendor in order to do some of that patching. So it does require a little bit more manual, but it's getting better all the time, where the vendors are recognizing that this is the way that that we need to go with the patching, is that it's going to help technicians, businesses, everything. So again, same idea with some of the other topics that I brought up, is that automated reporting can greatly assist with this as well, is that it can schedule frequent reports that can be sent out to review that OS firmware version, so it can be ensured that all your devices on the network are up to the latest standards for that patching, and then help with scheduling some review, planning, and set up for schedules for maintenance on patching these systems. So that planning, I keep coming back to, is the key point to really hit home, is that the planning part is really the essential piece to this. So mine was kind of short and quick, but I really wanted to just kind of run through that methodology that we use here at Bulletproof. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Tim Doel, and Tim, I'll let you take it from there just to kind of elaborate more and on the mainly on the Azure piece.
Thank you, Chris. Right, let me just get presenting. Okay, bear with me 2 seconds. Okay. Okay. I trust everybody can see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yep, you can see it.
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So, in the interest of time, I will move on, get straight into the content. What I wanted to really kind of cover today was really more of a focus on the Windows patching arena. It's an area that I have a lot of experience from. I was actually previously at Microsoft and had this conversation with customers a hell of a lot over the past few years as we tried to encourage them to move away from Windows 7 and Windows 8 onto the 10 platform, but really the Microsoft 365 all up modern workplace solution. So depending on how familiar you are, Microsoft 365 is essentially an always current product suite, really comprising of Office apps and Office Online, Exchange Online, EMS, so Intune, Endpoint Manager, and of course Windows. So all of those essentially have a pretty rapid update process. A lot of it obviously is online, being that it's there are infrastructure services, but obviously you still need to consider things like your Office applications and Windows. So I really want to kind of do a bit of a level set just so that everybody understands what is out there and what really you should be doing, and kind of give you some pointers. So the first thing to kind of point out really is, and this slide is not completely up to date, but I wanted to use it as an example. This is Windows 10, and the next one is Office, and this really shows you the vast amount of updates that are actually going into the products since basically the launch. And these actual slides, they're missing the last basically year and a half, so there's considerably more. And I don't know, I have not seen a more recent version. I would struggle to understand how they would get it onto a single slide, but it gives you a good idea of how much product development is going in right now. And that's a consideration, because of course obviously you need to consider getting out these new versions of Windows and Office to your end users, but obviously testing and incorporating that into your servicing strategy. So first of all, the modern workplace has evolved significantly over the past sort of 5 years, with a lot of trends kind of emerging. Some organizations picking up aspects of that, like maybe a flexible work anywhere approach, maybe a bit more of a BYOD situation with devices. This is really the modern workplace vision of Microsoft right now, which is have multiple device platforms, different form factors, tablets, desktops, laptops, and then BYOD, perfectly acceptable potentially, depending on the organization. Certainly a work anywhere mentality, the ability to remotely manage and support those devices effectively, and have that agility and security. So agility in the servicing, agility in the updates. They'd love it if you could get to the point where you could almost treat Windows essentially like a mobile phone, where you get an update at 11 o'clock in the evening and you just go sure, install, and put the phone down, and you don't really think anything more of it. The downside, of course, is that we have decades of experience with Windows, and we know that patching process has not been that reliable. So there's always going to be an amount of of risk and concern regarding taking on that approach. So it's definitely a case of, like, picking your battles. As far as most organizations are concerned today, I would say the vast majority of them have not moved fully into that modern workplace kind of method. And there's a lot of aspects that are definitely traditional. So, for example, you're doing a lot of on-prem patching. That might be a real big problem for you now, since you've been forced into that modern workplace with COVID-19. And you might find yourself in the situation where a lot of those devices are disconnected or only intermittently connected, and therefore maybe not getting patches or updates. That's actually a real problem right now, because there are a lot of security risks being essentially reported, where the nation states and attacker groups are essentially going after those types of scenarios where people are at home, are working from home on a regular basis, and maybe aren't up to date. So that's definitely something to consider. Obviously, on top of that, the way that you actually kind of test and deploy your patching today traditionally was very costly and time consuming. Lots of app compat, lots of risk-based testing within business units, and it's a slow and it's a costly approach. Realistically, when you're looking at modern workplace, you are really looking to kind of take control of that and drastically reduce your TCO. So it's can be quite a long battle, but it's definitely worth certainly leaping towards in some of the main value areas, such as things like Windows Update for Business, which I'll get onto in a minute. Now, there's a lot of concern out there regarding testing. If we put down a quality update, if we put down a feature update, what's that going to break in the environment? As I said before, that's traditionally due to what you've done in the past with, like, Windows 7. And what you generally would have is situations where your IT team would pick and choose the patches that would go down onto Windows 7 and Office. Specifically, maybe if I'm not using this framework, we won't do that part. If we're not using this Office product, we won't do that part. And what ended up happening was you would have essentially a very fragmented patched device. And of course, you would get lots of problems. So you would install a quality update, critical fix, something like that, and it would break something within your organization or maybe an application. And then, of course, you end up essentially having to call Microsoft. Along with that, you've got thousands of other customers doing the same thing. And Microsoft was essentially very, very reactive at that point. They've got a lot of issues they have to try and remediate, and a lot of problems to fix for customers, and it's costly on both sides. And what a lot of people don't realize, of course, is when Microsoft does its testing, and you get this kind of idea of, well, hang on a second, Microsoft has clearly not done any testing. The problem you have here is the fact that when they test against a fully patched device. They're not selectively picking and choosing what goes onto it. So when they test versus when you test, there is quite often a dramatic difference between it. So part of the new cumulative update model and the feature update model is based upon a system where it's always fully patched. And that has a lot of benefits. For example, every customer is now on the same or a very similar playing field. Obviously, there are potentially some differences there, but for the most part, the bulk of it is the same, which means overall, there's a lot less issues being reported. There's a lot more time for Microsoft to work on product enhancements and proper fixes and security. And at the end, you have essentially a much more reliable platform, much more reliable applications, less impact on the service desk with people shutting down the phone saying their PC's a blue screen, that type of thing, and ultimately a much better user experience. And that eventually will kind of help mold that idea of that mobile phone where, essentially an update appears on it and you just hit install and let it go. Now, granted, most organizations are always going to want to factor in some type of risk-based strategy around that, but it would be nice to kind of move at least towards that vision, to some extent. So just as a very quick primer, from a Windows servicing perspective, I just actually previously mentioned them. There are two different types of updates from a Windows perspective, which are quality updates, which essentially is the cumulative update that Chris mentioned. So your security fixes, reliability fixes, etc. With a supersedent system in there. So essentially, you always just download the one. You don't have to do the old style OS where, you're downloading multiple updates. Then you also have the feature updates. Now, these are twice a year, spring and fall. at least certainly in our hemisphere anyway. And they essentially are the kind of the service pack-esque type kind of deployment. So they're much larger. They generally are going to contain all of your, your latest features and capabilities. The one thing I also wanted to point out on this, I don't know what any of you have, obviously, but there's a key point to here, which is the servicing life cycle. If you're using Windows Professional in your environment today, each of those updates, those feature updates twice a year, they get 18 months of servicing. If you happen to be an enterprise customer, the full release gets 30 months of servicing. Now, the reason why that I wanted to bring that up is as we move into the kind of the strategy side of things, you can actually build rings and actually have maybe an area of your business which is highly sensitive to risk be on essentially maybe one release over 1 year or maybe 2 years with that full version. So essentially you can lock them into that and you don't have to worry about losing servicing and updates. Okay. So how do we do it? Now, this is actually what we do with Bulletproof customers as well. So, and we are, for the most part, we are focusing on Intune. A lot of our customers don't have any management products installed today. They're not coming from System Center. Sometimes they might have an older product that's out there that they're looking to replace. So generally we focus on Intune, but the main part of this really is Windows Update for Business, and it's supported in any of those 3 products that you see there. So if you are just using traditional group policy today, you can still use Windows Update for Business. And what's great about it really is over the last few years, they've improved it to provide kind of 3 main areas for you to be able to configure it. So deferrals, so you don't have to take those updates on day 0. You can actually choose maybe 30 days, 60 days, 90 days off, so that it gives you plenty of time to be able to test and prepare. It also gives you maintenance windows, so you're making sure that the downloads and installations aren't happening inside core hours and impacting user experience. And then you can also use things like deadlines, so that you're actually making sure that patches are happening within an acceptable time frame and maintaining compliance within your organization. So a lot of that is going in there, and they're always looking to add and improve to it. They've made huge improvements with things like delivery optimization, which gives you essentially peer content sharing, so that you're not all downloading the same updates through potentially the same internet pipe. So there's a lot of optimization that's available there. Analytics and communities there as well, especially from a Windows Insider perspective. So the next part of it really is to look at the servicing strategy, and really to kind of move from what you were traditionally doing, which is usually more of a project kind of focused area, like maybe when you get a service pack every 3 years, all hands to battle stations, lots of project managers, build it out, start testing, get that service pack deployed, usually very expensive. The idea here is that with Windows and Office and the other Microsoft product suites constantly updating, is that this becomes more of a kind of a process. And in that regard, the more you automate, the cheaper it's going to be, and the more predictable it's going to be. And you can factor in the risk as you go. One point here, the second point, manage applications and don't let them manage you. This is something that I constantly talk to customers about, and it's really about how much technical debt do you bring into your organization by having, dare I say, low quality applications. Applications which don't have any support, aren't supported on Windows 10, maybe aren't supported on 64-bit OS, that type of scenario. Be cognizant of this, because when we are looking to do workplace transformations and we are trying to get organizations into the cloud, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a legacy application that causes you problems. So manage those applications, find out which ones are going to cause you risk. You can always contact me on LinkedIn as well if you have any other questions there. Applications is obviously a big topic, which I can't delve too much into now with the amount of time that we have. The next part obviously is identify your business units, their needs, their risks, obviously their applications as well. Identify your subject matter experts, not just from an IT perspective, but also within those business units. All of this will factor in essentially to your design strategy. Also, remember that when you do this, 99% of Windows 7 apps are compatible on Windows 10. That's telemetry proven, analytics proven, documented by Microsoft, which means you don't have to rigorously test everything that's within your organization. You can really just focus on maybe that 1%, those high risk apps that have caused you problems in the past. Usually most organizations know what those applications are, and really just do essentially smoke testing. Plan early, deploy early to those SMEs, and then you'll be able to find out where those problems are and deal with them accordingly. So just as a quick walkthrough, this is kind of a sample plan that we have, and it's actually something that we use with most customers, at least as a starting point within Bulletproof. So really 3 phases that you want to kind of consider. So the first one is obviously the planning and the preparation. So kind of leading on from what I was talking about on the last slide. Work with the insider preview builds. Don't be afraid of insider preview. There is that perception that it's just a beta build and it will break all the time and nothing will really work properly on it. That's simply not true. In my time at Microsoft, I was always on an insider preview build. And I think over the 10 years I was with them, I maybe had one requirement to do a rebuild, and I was on a very, very early development build in that stage of Windows 10. I traditionally use Windows Insider Slow, very reliable, very close to what you're going to be essentially getting next from a Windows 10 perspective. It's a great option to have your IT staff using so that you can do things like planning for future updates. You can even do things like start building any customer collateral if you need to kind of get that out to users so that they're maybe more familiar with a new feature that you're wanting to leverage. So to definitely look at that as an option. Then essentially you want to kind of look at your targeted pilot deployment. So essentially your first group of users, usually SMEs within a business unit that know the applications, know the user experience, get them to test their applications first. Then you can react to any issues that kind of pop up. It's unlikely that you're realistically going to get any application issues once you're on Windows 10, and most people are on Windows 10 now anyway. That's kind of in itself, once you're past Windows 7, would have mitigated a lot of those types of problems. And then finally, once you're happy with that, you do your broad deployment. So everybody else in with the organization, you could potentially do split deployments within that kind of band. So you could maybe have another area which is higher risk, and you could maybe deploy to that separately after the fact. And then to kind of bear in mind that this is all really continual service improvement. So with like any of those kind of management models, all of this essentially is feeding back into the plan and prepare so that you know for the next part. And this essentially goes on, 2 releases per year for the foreseeable future. So if we want to actually kind of map that out of what it looks like, and this is what we do, we have a Ring 0, so that's your internal SME testing. It's using the Windows Insider Slow channel. The target is just a limited IT professional audience, maybe app devs, those types of communities. And as I mentioned before, you can use it for doing things like user collateral build, testing new features and capabilities. Also, it's your only opportunity as an organization to feed back into the product development community. So if you do find problems or you think there's something needs to be kind of tweaked or changed or would be a valuable addition, this is the opportunity for you to be able to do that. But you also use it for your first pass risk testing. So your common applications, your Office suite, your basic line of business apps. It's a good opportunity just to do some basic smoke testing and see if you have any problems there. The next ring, Ring 1, this is going to be your first wave. It's going to be using semi-annual channel, which is published. So it's using a 0-day deferral. So literally as soon as it's published and it's available, those users essentially download. This gives them that kind of that ahead approach on not just the feature updates, obviously, but the quality updates, those cumulative updates with the product patching. That can also cause problems as well. So it's always good to have a ring there to factor in for that. Target audience is going to be your broad IT professional community, and then key business SMEs, as I said, that kind of know the experience within those business units, familiar with the applications, and can actually test those applications. You can use it for finalizing that user collateral that you built in Ring 0, business app smoke testing, start testing some of those more risky apps, get that feedback into your IT communities, and really kind of prepare for the final ring, which is your broad deployment. So once again, using semi-annual channel, but this time you can see that you actually have a deferral in. So here you're looking at a 30-day deferral. So it gives you a month to kind of look at the new features before it starts to move out in your organization, and maybe a seven-day deferral on your cumulative updates. All target audience, purpose, this is really your full production at this point. Obviously, you still take that end user feedback because that drives into your service improvement, so you know what to do and what not to do essentially in the next phase. And this is just really an illustration of the way that it kind of looks. So 6 months of insider preview, followed by essentially a minimum of 18 months on that semi-annual channel. And then essentially you're looking at an overlap with the next feature update. So, and you can kind of lay that down sort of staggered approach. Obviously, as I said, if you have an enterprise build, you could have 30 months of servicing, which means that one of those cones might potentially be extended should you need to, if you have those kind of risk areas. And as I mentioned before, you do have that ability to essentially create additional risk rings. And you even have the ability to really lock a ring. So it's a relatively new feature that they put in, which enables you to say, I want my organization to move to maybe 1909, so the release from last fall, but not to update past that until essentially you as an organization have approved it. So you do have a lot of granular control. Okay. So that's my kind of quick spin over it, kind of best practice. My actions or takeaways really would be, if you're not using Windows Update for Business today, do seriously look at it. And if you are using anything like SCCM to do your on-site deployment, just look to kind of move to that as well. Like, instead of having somebody picking and choosing and approving updates, it's really better to just essentially consume and put deferral periods in there to allow you to be able to test. That's it, really. Any questions? Brendan, do you want to take over?
Sure thing. Thank you for that. Good presentations from both of you. That was awesome. Any questions at all? They can be asked via the chat box as well, if that's what you'd prefer. I'm hearing crickets, so it looks good. So I guess that's it. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Chris and Tim for presenting that. That was amazing. Both presentations were great. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you all again next month.
Hang on a sec.
Oh.
Is there a place where you can get the copy of the recording?
Absolutely, yes. Every time we record this, we do put it up on the Partner Spotlight page on our website. But if you reach out to me directly, I can send you the link to the recording as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for joining and have a good day.
Great, thank you, everyone.